I like to refer to him as the Godfather. I'm talking about Mark Chissano.
Since COVID, B2B is taking a lot of hits.
You guys were the very first Amazon DSP.
11 years into this. It's getting more and more difficult to actually survive in it and make money. It all started with Amazon Fresh.
You were one of the first ones to show these guys can actually maybe be a business facilitator. We've heard some of the horror stories of they have left companies holding the bag. You look at them as a friend, not a foe, early on. I'll tell you, I want to partner with them. Let's see what it's about versus keep these guys away. Can you make money at this? Can you make money being an Amazon DSP?
Start with the client and work backwards. That wasn't the way any of us thought.
It's the other way. All the vehicles you see
Everywhere.
neighborhood street.
All over the place. And the problem with that is 4,000 DSPs, 400,000 drivers, 200,000 vehicles somewhere in there that hit the market, 100,000 vehicles all hitting the market at the same time. Not only was it impossible to find a body shop, rates went through the roof. They can't just make a change like that in 2 weeks. One thing I would recommend is that if anybody is looking to get into business with someone that might be a 3PL, that is kind of putting together the Temus and the Shens, and they're then going out to someone like you. If you're a logistics company, I got seriously burned without getting into any details. It's in the millions of dollars that they owe me. Your gut's always right. Get their financial. Dig into them. You have the right to see it.
Someone who's as experienced as you are, the amount of success you've had, and still there could be a blind spot.
I'm a dumb bastard.
You are recognized as a national leader in this space.
I would never have any success unless I...
Want more game-changing insights from the best and last mile delivery? Stay locked in with Last to First. Follow us on social media for exclusive clips, behind-the-scene content, and expert tips. Subscribe to our podcast so you never miss a beat. Join the conversation. Send us some comments, drop in your questions, and become a part of the Last to First movement. Want to be a guest or know someone that should be? Hit us up and let's get them on the show. If you're interested in sponsorship opportunities, reach out to us. We'd love to work with you. Find us on social media with @LastToFirstPodcast. Send email to info@LastToFirstPodcast.com or go check out our website and let us know how we can support, help, and bring you better content going forward. Now back to Last to First.
I'm Mark Chissano, CEO of Avant Business Services, Cornucopia Logistics, and Net Zero Logistics, and you're watching Jason Burns' famous Last to First podcast.
Fast and reliable last mile delivery isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And that's precisely why over 270 global brands trust Dropoff for their deliveries. With real-time tracking, professional couriers, and flexible scheduling, Dropoff ensures your critical shipments meet their destination on time, every time, down to the minute. So whether you're in the healthcare, retail, or industrial sectors, or just looking for a logistics partner, Dropoff has the experience, delivery network, and technology to propel your business forward in over 40 plus cities. Visit dropoff.com, click Talk to an Expert, and give them the L2F discount code to get 10% off your first month's invoice. Now back to Last First. Well, welcome back to our next episode on the Last to First, and today is another great guest. I like to refer to him as the Godfather. He is, and we probably edit some of this first part out, so you won't even know the background here. But truly, not just one of the smartest people in the space. He has created multiple businesses in this industry. He is the very first original Amazon DSP out there in a market like New York, and is the longest tenured one. We're going to talk about that. Avant Business Services, Cornucopia Logistics, that's the Amazon DSP, Net Zero Logistics. I'm talking about Mark Chissano. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind compliments. I don't know if they're deserving, but I'll take it.
Well, you're Italian?
I am.
You sure you're not Jamaican? All these
So
damn
the
jobs?
Godfather comment, I'll take.
I mean, but you might be Jamaican, all these damn jobs and companies you have, right? No, so, I think, one, just thank you for being here. It's an honor and privilege to interview you. You've done so much and accomplished so much. I hope we get a chance to get into most of that on this interview. Let's just start with Avant Business Services. That's the original company.
Yes.
Your grandfather, your father?
No, actually, Avant Business Services started in 1932.
Okay.
And the original name was Airline Delivery Service.
Okay.
And it was founded by taking the payrolls that would get flown in by the airlines as the airlines started to have corporate offices in New York, like TWA, Pan Am.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was airline delivery service. My father got involved in the business in 1976 after working in the hotel and restaurant industry for about 40 years. He worked directly for Baron Hilton Hotels.
Yeah.
Speaking of The Godfather, my father actually negotiated all the union contracts for Hilton as they were expanding not just nationwide, but throughout the world.
That could be a whole podcast on just those experiences, I'm sure.
And during his time in the hotel and restaurant industry, he left Hilton. He went to a hotel in Chicago called the Sherman House, which was probably the oldest standing building, one of the only to survive the Chicago fires. And he worked as the general manager and vice president of the hotel for 2 years. We actually lived in the hotel.
Oh.
We could have made a movie about me as a little 5th and 6th grader living in downtown Chicago in the Loop.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But in the time that he was there, he developed some relationships with people in the liquor industry that he knew from New York Times, but as well got to know him better in Chicago. And they were shareholders of back then what were the Pink Sheets. So it was kind of a publicly traded company called Airline Delivery Service that was tiny, maybe $2 million in sales.
Okay.
That was public, that was about to go bankrupt. And they offered my father, who was father of 8 kids. He was probably 55 years old at the time.
Wow.
And jumped from the corporate world and started this new venture of taking over this company in New York City that he knew nothing about in the logistics industry. And I give him a lot of credit.
Hell yeah.
You know, at that age,
At 55 with 8 kids, 8
8
mouths to
kids.
feed?
I'm the last of 8.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
And took a real leap of faith.
Managing independent contractors and gig workers is tough. Between onboarding, compliance, insurance, and payments, it's a lot to handle. And one mistake can put your delivery business in jeopardy of a major misclassification claim. That's where GigSafe comes in. Your all-in-one solution for managing 1099 workers seamlessly and cost-effectively. Get drivers onboarded in days, not weeks. Automate compliance and save up to 40% on insurance. Turn compliance into your competitive advantage. Visit gigsafe.com and give them the L2F discount code to get your first month's invoice totally free. Now back to Last of First.
And, built it up to, at that point, maybe 10 years later, I'd say somewhere in there, I joined the company. My brother Frank was there. My brother Charles was there. I joined. Then my brother Jim joined, and maybe, $10 million company at that point.
Okay.
And then we bought it out from the shareholders.
Wow. So this is mid-'80s, roughly?
This was,
10 years
exactly
into that?
right. 85, and then in 86, I think we bought Bill Goodman's company, Service Warehousing.
Okay.
Service Messenger.
Got it. So before we go into each one of these, but Avant is your, I would say, traditional
So
kind of
business
messenger
to
courier?
business, New York City. We manage mailrooms. We manage messenger centers. It is the traditional B2B foot messenger.
Operates just in the New York area?
New York City, New Jersey, into Connecticut, into Long Island,
Okay.
but really just kind of tri-state area B2B.
Got it. That model is IC-based, hybrid-based?
So was modeled as IC-based. We have very few ICs remaining.
Okay.
We have shifted towards an employee-based driver model.
Okay.
It's a whole nother podcast right there alone.
And how large is that business roughly? Maybe drivers, revenue, you can give us
So
some sense of that.
everything combined.
We'll do Avant and then we'll do Cornucopia.
Yeah, so Avant probably 150 employees.
Okay. Good size business.
Much larger than what it was when years ago when it was just the 4 of us.
Okay.
But, since COVID, it's definitely taken hits. B2B is taking a lot of hits.
Yeah.
The messenger center business, we run the Empire State Building. We used to have 8 employees in that one messenger center, down to 1 person for a multi-million-dollar square foot building. So when a package comes into the building, we accept it, and then we got to shut the messenger center down to go upstairs and deliver it.
So the first time I heard about that, I'm a Southern boy from New Orleans.
I couldn't tell from the
You
accent.
couldn't tell? Yeah.
I thought you were from the Bronx.
We don't have very many big buildings like that. So the first time I think I was a company in Chicago where I heard about this kind of messenger service, inside the building. I was like, wait, what? They're paying you to just bring stuff up and down the building? But
So I helped start that.
tell us
Did you know
about
that?
it. No, I did not.
So Phyllis Applebaum, and then what's his name? CLDA member.
Ron Lisbon.
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yeah, Gonzalez.
So
Phyllis came to New York. She wanted to learn about the business. She felt Chicago would be a good marketplace for it.
Yeah.
I helped her, and this is the value of CLDA or MCAA back then.
Yeah.
Shared marketing materials, shared how we would not interview, but kind of.
You're saying
We'll survey tenants in a building, get ideas of volume of work going in and outbound. So we shared everything with Phyllis.
Who pays you? So the building's paying you to do this? The tenants in the building?
So think of a messenger
describe the
center
service,
as a mailroom for the building.
Okay.
So back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, outside couriers, bike messengers, foot messengers would come into a building. They, in the old days, had access to the elevators, go upstairs, and there was what was called tenant incident. And in the real estate world, a tenant incident is when a tenant claims that their pocketbook was stolen, or there was harassment, or an incident of some sort. And in order to remove the risk of tenant incidents, I pitched, back then it was Helmsley Spear, this guy that reported directly to Harry Helmsley, John Traynor, said, how about you take some unoccupied space in the lobby of the Gray Bar building? It was the first one in New York City, 420 Lexington Avenue. Let us operate, we called it a messenger center. They're now called Package Intercept. And every delivery that comes into the building, we accept it, we use our technology, we track it, trace it, we bring it up to the tenants with uniformed employees, jacket, tie, background check, drug checked, and it's a revenue stream. And it wound up being a big part of our business. But unfortunately, with the demise of the B2B world in New York City and other urban markets and stay at home to work and people not going into offices, we've seen a huge drop in it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I know there was a surge in it post September 11th because obviously buildings security was a big issue. Having a known entity provider in that building, I didn't think about that. You're right with the post-COVID, big change in that model.
Yep.
But you have other businesses where you tap into the B2C world, primarily Cornucopia Logistics.
Yes.
So I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, so we'll come back and forth a little bit. But what fascinated me about Cornucopia Logistics, and I didn't notice until you told me this maybe a year or so ago, you guys were the very first Amazon, it probably wasn't even called DSP at that point.
Well, it was.
It was
DSP? Called DSP, but the P was a different. Everything in the Amazon world's an acronym.
Yeah.
So DSP was Delivery Service Provider.
Okay.
And
now it's partner.
And about 5 years into it, maybe it was even more. So I started in early 2014, and I think it was about.
Need to scale your business without the hassle of growing pains? Meet Adlinc, your go-to partner for outsourced talent solutions, designed to keep your delivery operations running smoothly and profitably. From customer support reps to dispatchers, including nights and weekends, to back office admins, Adlinc trains each logistics coordinator in your processes and native systems to customize the solution to your business's needs. And with top-tier security and compliance, your data is always safe and protected. Optimize, scale, succeed. Visit adlink.com and use the L2F discount code to get $200 off your first month's invoice. Now back to Last the First.
4 years. They changed it to what they call 2.0. It was like the new program, and they changed the P in the acronym to partner.
Got it. So what do you do today? Describe that business right now, and then I want to touch on the evolution just in with Amazon for a second.
So I will say that I know a lot of people out there watching and listening have a bit of a tainted view of the program. I will tell you that I am a bit of an anomaly. Most companies that get involved in the program last maybe 2 to 3 years tops. And part of it is that the program is kind of designed for an entrepreneur. And they recruit entrepreneurs that may not have any experience in logistics. And a lot of it could be you own a bodega, you own a gas station, you own the candy store around the corner, or whatever it may be, or a laundry's mat. And they look for people that are entrepreneurial in spirit, and then they help teach them how to run a small logistics company. And I'm a major anomaly. Like, we are now 11 years into this, and it's getting more and more difficult to actually survive in it and make money. But the program is designed for a small company to handle about 20 routes and have an owner be there every day, and that's their job.
To manage the business.
Yes, and with me, we've got everything from .com in Manhattan. So we started something in 2015 called the Walker Program. And the Walker Program, originally known as Johnny Walker, like the booze, was the code name. And we started to line haul 1,500 .com deliveries in a 26-foot truck, where the line haul would go to what we called an exchange point. And that exchange point would move, and those trucks then, we had an acronym for it of ORDT, Orbital Roving Dispatch Terminal. So the truck would move into strategic spots in Manhattan. And in the very beginning, it was maybe 41st Street down to maybe 30th Street. And walkers would kind of follow along with the truck or hop on the subway and go down to the next stop. And we had hand trucks inside the 26-foot truck, and would take the packages out and just walk it. So it zero carbon from the point of hitting the streets of New York. Eventually will be completely zero carbon when we get electric trucks. And I am very, very focused on trying to help our planet as a logistics owner to remove every bit of carbon. It was probably 5 years ago I participated on a webinar that was held by a woman, Dr. Ann Goodchild, who is the director of logistics for the University of Washington. And it was a webinar that Pepsi sponsored. And there were hundreds of people on this webinar. And I remember her throwing out a statistic that 14% of the miles driven on U.S. roads are from transportation companies, but 22% of the carbon are accounted for by those logistics companies. And it's disgusting fact. You think about it, it's so skewed. And a lot of it has to do with older vehicles and all the independent contractors that are in the industry that have old vans, for the most part, that are spewing out a lot of carbon.
Why is that important to you?
I have 2 daughters, and I hope my daughters eventually have children as well. And I feel that if we continue down the path we're going, that we may not have a planet in about 75 years from now. I really think that we've got, you look at the storms, I know everybody calls it climate change,
global warming,
but it's extremes in whatever weather it is. It's either extremely hot. Look at the what's going on in California.
Snow, 10 inches in the
flooding. It goes from fires to floods. It's like apocalyptic. It's like out of the Bible. And I believe a lot of it is driven by problems with our ozone that's been caused by carbon.
We're going to put a pin in that. We'll come back to that, because then that's another entity, and I want to talk more about what you're doing there and some of the forward-thinking, leading things you're doing. But Cornucopia, so this Walker program.
So that's
pretty innovative. So essentially, you created this what I'll call a mobile cross dock, where you can move around New York and gain the efficiency from an operational standpoint. By the way, you're cutting the carbon footprint, helping with emissions. but you're also probably proving to Amazon like, hey, this guy can
Innovative.
Yeah, this guy can help us solve problems that, even though we're Amazon, they're not known to be transportation people, right? So they probably learned a lot from you with your experience and background.
I've learned a
helped
lot
you.
from them.
Yeah, okay.
I really have. But it's interesting. You just reminded me of something. There was an event for DSPs in New York called Ignite on the Road, and they were handing out awards. And it was, I think, one of the first Ignite on the Road. And they didn't have an award, but they wanted to give me something. So they gave me a pin that was Top Innovator. And that's exactly what the words you said.
Yeah, yeah.
So when we first, I'll go back to Cornucopia, first started in 2014. I believe we were onboarded in May of 2014. And our first deliveries were for Amazon Fresh, which is the food. And that's really what started.
In the delivery business, efficiency is everything. And that's where Dispatch Science gives you the edge. Their modern, cloud-based, AI-powered transportation management system optimizes routes, provides real-time tracking updates, and automates back-end functions, saving you time and money. If you're serious about scaling your operations and want to stay ahead of the competition, Dispatch Science is your next move. Visit dispatchscience.com and book a demo, and make sure you give them the L2F discount code to get 20% off your first month's invoice. Now back to Last First.
Started this world's second largest logistics company at this point in a matter of 10 years.
What was that? Describe it in detail.
So Fresh
what were the requirements?
It was training. I had to go out to, actually we're in California right now. I would think I was in DLA1 is what it was called. It's their acronym. Everything's an acronym for their Los Angeles facility. Okay. So there were about 5 of us that flew out, and we got our training on our onboarding training. You learn everything under the sun, learn their system, their flex system. You learn their portal, which they didn't really have back then. It's quite a sophisticated engine.
And you had to...
So we had to learn all of that.
Too, right? You had to get vehicles?
So we had to get vehicles, and back then with Amazon Fresh, we launched with 16-foot reefer trucks, which was something new to me then. But we went from August when we first launched. So Cornucopia was just kind of a thought. And the reason the name came up at Cornucopia, because people have asked me that, because we were delivering food. And you think of Cornucopia, it's a basket of food. So we went from that, 0 employees, to starting a company that was just recruiting and onboarding employees to start training drivers, training dispatchers, training customer service reps, to by the end of 2014, I believe we had 250 employees. 250 to 275 in a matter of 4 months. And it was wild, and learned a lot during that time frame. And we were the only DSP during that time frame. And then towards the end of 14, beginning of 15, they started to bring in others. And then it just exploded. But it all started with Amazon Fresh. And then in October of 2014, because we were doing such a good job for them, they presented us with the opportunity in Manhattan for Amazon Prime Now, which was like immediate, 2-hour. They could order a TV. We had vans, we had walkers. You could order a TV. You could order, big and bulky stuff, or you could order a thing of toothpaste. Tube of toothpaste, and have it delivered within 60 minutes.
Talk to me about, because it's interesting. I remember this time, and from a final mile industry, a lot of owners were sitting back at that time and thinking, Amazon's coming into our space. It's going to be a game changer. They're going to take a lot of our market share, take a lot of our business. You were one of the first ones to show, hey, these guys can actually maybe a business facilitator. Like, I can maybe work with these guys and partner with them. Till now, we said there's maybe a little tainted, taste people having their mouth about Amazon, because we've heard some of the horror stories of how they have left companies holding the bag in many cases. But what made you actually want to say, hey, I can partner these guys? What made you look at them as a friend, not a foe, early on? and actually go forward and say, I want to partner with them and see what it's about versus I'm going to try to play defense and keep these guys away?
I looked at it as probably one of the biggest opportunities I've ever been presented in at this point, 45 years, I think I've been in this industry. So at that point, 34 years, something like that, 33 years. I mean, they're just massive. They are, they're the giant dinosaur. Not that they move slowly like a dinosaur. They move as quickly as you can imagine.
They do.
But I viewed it as an amazing opportunity to learn from them and to grow my business.
Yeah. And that's happened.
And the growth was incredible.
Yeah. Now,
we'll probably have 800 employees today making deliveries for them. Everything from Whole Foods store to home via e-bike, .coms in Manhattan, where we will probably in Washington Heights today, we'll deliver between 10 to 15,000 deliveries. Long Island .coms, Brooklyn, Queens .coms.
So that's incredible that you've had that type of long-term relationship with Amazon. You've actually evolved in many different ways from fresh to all the things you're doing now. A couple of questions to round out this particular part of the conversation. With Amazon, there's pros and cons to work with them, right? There's the opportunity, but then Amazon wants to control every single facet of the business, from what I understand it, and that can be a good thing or bad thing. So, what's been your experience like, the good and the bad of working? You're the longest tenured, DSP. What can you share about that experience?
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah. and can you make money at this? I mean, can you make money being an Amazon DSP?
So I will answer this as best I can.
Yeah. No one's watching.
So the good is that you can learn a lot. I've really learned a lot in the 11 years I've been doing it. I think they really focus you on Jeff Bezos's way of thinking, which is start with the client and work backwards. So everything they do, when they sit in a meeting room and try to figure out something they're going to change, they start with the client. How will the client be affected by this? And then work out.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the way any of us thought, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's the other way.
Right.
I'm a dictator.
How do we benefit by doing this, and what's going to happen? And you know what? So the client may get a delivery 5 minutes earlier than they're used to, or 5 minutes later than they're used to.
Right.
Different way of thinking. Yeah. I believe you.
Running a business comes with risk, but being unprotected shouldn't be one of them. That's why business owners trust CUI Agency for their insurance and risk management needs. For 50 years, CUI has helped transportation companies understand a unique risk, reduce their costs, and proactively manage what matters to them most. Specializing in commercial auto, hired and owned, cargo, warehousing, and professional liability coverages, the CUI team tailors solutions to fit your unique needs. Don't leave your future to chance. Visit CUIAgency.com and talk to one of our expert producers who can give you the guidance you need to understand your risk and put the right insurances in place to protect your business. Now back to Last to First.
Asked the bad and the ugly. Lately, the bad and the ugly has been changes that they've made to how they manage the fleet. And the fleet are the vehicles that we lease or rent. And
it's all the vehicles you see on your
everywhere,
neighborhood street.
These all over the place.
The Sprinter vans.
Swish. And because we are such a tenured company, we got hit hard with the number of vehicles that they wanted to transition out of the program or to bring back up to kind of perfect condition. And unfortunately, when they did that last year in April, they did it like that. Just the way they do a lot of other things is, this is it, you got 2 weeks, get it done. And the problem with that is it was done throughout the country. So you're talking, probably 4,000 DSPs, probably there's 400,000 drivers, so probably 200,000 vehicles somewhere in there that hit the market where maybe 50% of them need body work. So 100,000 vehicles all hitting the market at the same time. Not only was it impossible to find a body shop, but the rates went through the roof.
Of course.
And you got help. You know, there were certain allotments for what should be the amount of body damage over the time frame you had it.
Yeah.
But it was extremely costly, extremely, very, very expensive.
There's a mandate with the time frame to get this done by.
Correct.
Wow.
And I'm still explaining to the upper ups at Amazon how I think they need to look at these things differently going forward, that they can't just make a change like that in 2 weeks. They made some positive changes to it as well, where they took over the tire maintenance. So companies like Michelin and Bridgestone, where they'd have a contract and their buying power, reduces our expense because they would pick up the maintenance on those tires, and they'd have mechanics go in and be on premise to change out a flat right away. So there are pros and cons with each change that they make. And then making money at it, it's getting more and more difficult.
It's a challenge, yeah. Yeah, you know, I think...
Quality is a key thing, though. Like, if you can maintain your quality, you can make a lot of money in incentives. And that's what it's based on, is if you provide... Every week you get a scorecard, and that scorecard you either at poor, great, fantastic, or fantastic plus. And like I just saw this morning, the email, we were at 3 stations where we get graded. 2 were fantastic plus. 1 was fantastic. And it's, you know, it's a $20,000 incentive for the week. So you hit that every week, that's where you can make the money.
Yeah.
You don't hit it, you're not going to make money.
So we're talking about Amazon, and
Yes.
I was saying, you know, we all have I think, a love-hate with Amazon. You from a consumer standpoint,
I'm all love.
all love. Right? The convenience they sell, it's unbelievable. But when you doing business with them or against them, they are a shrewd competitor.
Yes.
And a very tough partner, which can be a good thing because you can learn a lot and it can challenge you and make you better. But it can also be challenging because they make these decisions that can impact you, your team, your organization, you know, in the drop of a dime. And so it's hard to stay afloat. But one of the things that you started talking about earlier with the innovation and the solution with the Walker program, and I don't know if you were intending to do this when you were thinking about solving this problem, or maybe it was a byproduct of the solution where you saw, you know, the opportunity to go and create net zero logistics. So it's another entity that you have, which is focused on, focused on bringing green solutions to transportation. Again, you talk about your passion behind it, which is for your daughters, which I think is incredible. But I want to talk about the business of that, because there's a lot of different, you know, misnomers out there about, you know, should you go green, EVs, is there ROI on that? So tell us a little bit about net zero logistics, kind of what it does, and then we can get into some of the questions about the technical aspects of it.
So net zero logistics, we started in, I think it was October or November of 2022. We decided that we needed an entity that was just zero carbon modalities of logistics, which my goal back then was by now to have all electric vans.
Okay.
But you talked about the ROI. It's just not there yet. When we started to really deep dive into this, so we have a 45,000 square foot warehouse in Hartford, Connecticut that we lease. I own about a 9,000 square foot warehouse in Stamford, Connecticut. We switched to employee-based drivers from independent contractor drivers so I could get my own vehicles.
Control those
electric
assets.
vehicles, control the assets, control the employee base, uniform, everything. And as we started to dive deeper into it, the numbers were astronomical just to create our own charging infrastructure. So in order to have charging at both Hartford and Stamford, it was going to cost us somewhere between $500,000 to $600,000 just to have the chargers installed.
Just to build the infrastructure. Wow.
So you
These
have
are
to
buildings
have...
you owned, you said?
You do.
You own these buildings.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you could go...
Imagine you didn't own them.
You could go, and I didn't own the Hartford facility, so any build out there, the the owner of the warehouse benefits. I do own Stanford, so I'd benefit myself, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's before you've bought or leased one van.
And as you're thinking when you're creating this and you're running the numbers, you're thinking that, okay, this is maybe the future of how deliveries will be done. It's a better solution, greener solution.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that the shippers will send money to you, or send business to you because do they really care about this? Like, is that enough?
That was
the hypothesis.
That was what we thought.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the corporate world has not gotten there yet. Mm-hmm. There are very few companies that are really valuing the ability to show that they are friendly to the environment. Mm-hmm. There are very few. Mm-hmm. IKEA is one of them. Mm-hmm. Amazon is another. If you look at the climate pledge, if you're familiar with the climate pledge, anybody involved in the climate pledge, they definitely value the added ability to use a company, whether it's their trash collector, their logistics company, their paper provider, if they're performing their services in a low carbon environment, mm-hmm. they tend to value it.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of them out there. And if you are a few pennies more for the delivery, you're just not seeing a return because there are not enough companies out there that will pay a few pennies more for a delivery knowing that it will help the planet.
Yeah.
And while people may think, well, in a New York City or Boston or Chicago or a major urban market, instead of buying a $35,000 van to make a delivery, you're buying the quads, which are the new rage for urban delivery. They're $18,000, $20,000, but then you got to pay for parking in downtown New York, which could be $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a month per spot. Per spot. And then you got to have a charging infrastructure, which is becoming really difficult to find real estate landlords in New York City that
are willing to do that,
are willing to allow you to charge lithium-ion batteries in their property.
Yeah.
And the insurance companies wind up saying, you know what, if you're charging lithium-ion batteries, your insurance is going to be X instead of Y.
Being an insurance guy, that is a question that we get asked from carriers.
Yep.
Are they storing or have any lithium-ion battery infrastructure in the building?
So what that is doing too is it's creating a whole new marketplace for businesses that focus on safe charging. Mm-hmm. So there's everything from shipping containers that are being repurposed into safe charging. There's a company called Perch Mobility.
Okay.
For transparency, I am a small investor in Perch.
Okay.
I love what they're doing. They actually just recently retained Laura Kavanaugh, who is the retired commissioner of New York City Fire Department.
Okay.
So she comes with a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge on fire safety.
Okay.
There are other companies. Joco is one that's created a very safe charging cabinet where you can charge batteries safely in a fireproof cabinet. Swabi, I think, is another. There's several companies that have focused on this.
Yeah.
And I think eventually what you'll see will be charging cabinets that are open to the public, almost like you go to Home Depot and you're going to buy a new container for your barbecue that's got the gas in it.
Yeah.
You bring the empty, you enter it, you pay.
Swap it out.
Box opens up, you put the empty in,
the propane
and then
tank,
propane. And then another one box opens up and you take the full. Same thing will eventually happen with e-bike batteries.
You just go in and swap out battery. Yep. They'll take it, charge it up. Next person comes in.
In New York City alone, there are somewhere between 60 to 80,000 independent contract e-bike couriers delivering food and packages on a daily basis.
So we sat on a panel at another conference called Move Mobility where we talked about this issue. Yeah, that was
I really enjoyed that.
Incredible conference. And the discussion centered around ROI. Right? So we kind of talked about that. And so you're saying that it's kind of hard to make the case today that there's a real significant ROI. What will it take for that to change? What changes this? Obviously, you can't deny, I think, from a climate change standpoint, there's a benefit to this. But to your point, how are you going to convince me, a business owner, to go spend all this capital?
It's a simple solution.
What's that?
And I have lobbied our government, whether it's a state government, federal government, local city councils. There needs to be a tax incentive for business to purchase electric mobility equipment in the logistics industry. So if you go and buy a $75,000 Tesla, you get a 75 or whatever the Tesla could be, a 50,000 or whatever. You get a $7,500 either rebate or a tax incentive from the federal government, which may be ending as we're speaking.
Well, yeah, I think that's
it may have already ended in this interview.
I got put to bed in one of the
but
executive orders.
There's nothing there for us. There's nothing for a business to be incentivized to reduce their carbon footprint by utilizing electric vans, electric e-bikes, e-trikes, quads, and there needs to be. And I have really tried everything I got in me to lobby and lobby again, and a little bit of headway, but it's just not there. And that's what needs to happen.
Yeah,
it's there for individuals. So if you go and buy an e-bike for yourself to use, and I think Colorado, there are certain states that have it, but it's only for personal use and not commercial.
Yeah. When I was looking for my personal vehicle, there was some tax incentives out there that you could take advantage of, but the cost is normally 2-3 times more than
$3,000 for a.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy a good e-bike.
Yeah. One of the things we heard during that discussion when we were at this conference was, the current auto manufacturers, right, they don't want to see this happen because in, gas vehicles today, there's brakes, there's oil changes, there's engine issues, so a lot of those dealerships makes money on the service side, right? When you go to EVs, you're mostly talking about the battery and brakes. It's not much and tires, right, that you have to change out. So
there is I've been working with an auto manufacturer, one of the world's largest auto manufacturers. We worked with General Motors in what they created called BrightDrop.
Okay, yes.
So BrightDrop got folded back into GM, but there is another. I can't say who it is. I'm still under an NDA, but come April, I believe I'll be able to discuss, and you will see in New York City us launching a brand new quad through this company that we've spent 1.5 years working with them, helping them design and create the most cutting-edge quad that you will see out there. Really excited for it, and they've got some really neat stuff coming out of this division they've created.
All right, I'll let you get off at that, but you got to promise to come back on the podcast and tell us about that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, come April. And April, we will be launching New York City's first micro hub.
Okay.
So we were awarded, and a micro hub is strictly just think of a bus stop in New York City. So it'll be 100 feet of curb space assigned to net zero logistics, and we are the only ones that can use it. There'll be signs up there, just like if you parked in a bus stop, you'd get ticketed or towed. Same thing with this, and it'll be net zero logistics micro hub. So we'll truck work into that location. It's designed the way we worked with New York City DOT on how it needed to be designed with the quads, and the truck gets offloaded, work goes on to the quads, and then out they go with zero carbon.
So it's an extension of what you did with the Walker program.
Yes.
But now you have it licensed, commissioned, you have the
Correct.
authority to do it in a state, in a city, New York, where you need to have the ability to create these innovative solutions because the density of people with the congestion.
And the Walker program, I mean, we didn't get into, but when Amazon purchased Whole Foods, that's really what was the impetus for us to start getting focused on different forms of final mile. We started to test different e-bikes. We tested the BrightDrop e-bikes. We tested something called the Diamondback. We tested Turns. We tested Zumo. Just a plethora of e-bikes and e-trikes. Coaster, which is a really good piece of product that we use. And through their purchase of Whole Foods, we now handle a majority of the Whole Foods in New York City. They're store-to-home delivery, and it's all done by either e-bike or e-trike and quads, eventually quads, not at the moment, but all zero carbon to the final user,
yeah.
the homeowners.
Well, I think that it's fascinating because we'll get to the future and where you think all this is going. You're obviously somewhere that we talk a lot about on this podcast, skate to where the puck is going, right? The kind of Wayne Gretzky line. And you seem like you're doing that. You may be a little bit ahead of it in some ways, so you're feeling the stress of it not getting the immediate ROI.
A lot of the stress.
but normally, the people that prepare for opportunities when they come, that's who execute and who capitalize and win. So credit to you for that. I want to move into just a couple of things I know are issues in the industry right now that you may be facing, have faced, and to shed light on how you've overcome some of these things or just what's happening in the space. So first one is congestion pricing in New York. It's a recent topic that's come up where, again, talking about your market where you're in, having access to parking and, the emissions issue. Like, what's happening with this issue? Where is it at today?
As of about an hour ago, Governor Hochul will be getting a letter this afternoon from Sean Duffy, who is the transportation secretary, letting her know that the federal government is shutting it down and removing their approval. So I read that right before I walked in our room here. And there had been whispers that the federal government was going to try and shut it down. I thought the way they'd shut it down was through funding. But apparently there is an approval that the federal government needed to provide, and I knew about that, but I didn't know that they could just kind of yank it, which is what they'll be doing today.
So this was a fee, a tax.
So the way I look at it, the whole congestion pricing was a tax, and it was
on delivery companies,
on everybody.
It's coming into
so
this.
You go down below 62nd Street, and you're in a passenger vehicle. You got to pay after you've paid what could be $18 to go over the GW Bridge. You're now going to pay $9 to go below 62nd Street. Now, for a passenger vehicle, that $9 is daily. So you're good for the day once you paid the $9. If you're in a truck, $36 to get inside Manhattan below 62nd or above the Battery, and it's every single time during that day. So if you're going in and out of the city 10 times in a truck and dropping off loads and going back to Jersey or Queens, Brooklyn, Bronx, Staten Island, 36 times every single time, 10 times a day, another $360 in costs. And the end user, the customers that are buying the product, are the ones that eventually have to pay for it. It's a tax to them.
Yeah, it's going to flow through.
Because logistics companies can't just absorb a cost like that.
Yeah.
And it affected so many businesses. Like, I went to I'll give you a perfect example of the opposite effect of rather than going below 62nd Street, I had to go to a doctor on 64th Street a couple of weeks ago. And I was at meetings elsewhere. I had to drive into the city from, I think, Queens. And I made a point to not go below 62nd Street. And I found a parking garage right next to the doctor's office I had to go to. I think I was there for a little over 2 hours, $70 to park. So the businesses above 62nd Street that are in the parking industry definitely jacked up their race to say, you know what, we could get probably $15 more because they don't have to pay the $9 to go below.
Still
and then
cheaper.
those that are below probably had to drop their prices to attract business. So it's such a trickling effect from the parking garages to the bodega to the coffee shop to the restaurants that are paying more for everything. And unfortunately, one of the ways, and I work really closely with the New York City DOT, and they are probably one of the most innovative DOTs in the country. They're really rocking and rolling. They're really coming up with some great ideas. One of the things that I just lost my train of thought. Delete that.
Yeah. Okay. We're talking about the you're working with the DOT authority in New York, how they've been innovative. I was going to lead this back to you getting, what's it called, the parking spot you get, the 100 feet?
We have a micro hub.
Micro hub. So that's a solution to this problem, right?
It is.
Yeah. I mean,
So they'll take a fee. We'll pay a fee, an annual fee.
Yeah.
It's very reasonable, but it gives us the ability to own that space for logistics, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And one of the really positive changes, they changed the city code so that if someone parks illegally and we have to get in that space to utilize it, and the DOT hasn't ticketed them or removed that vehicle, as a private business, we're allowed to actually get a tow truck company. Okay. We have to pay for it, but get it removed. Yeah. Where in a normal spot, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. So they just made that change in this month, in February. So it codified it.
Yeah, yeah. And about an hour ago, this came in. So this New York congestion.
So yes, I read that Sean Duffy has a letter drafted to Governor Hochul, letting her know that the federal approval that she needed and the state needed to move forward with tolling is being rescinded.
Let's talk about another issue. And obviously, we're in the second term for President Trump. I think for those...
Your favorite guy, isn't
it? my favorite guy.
Sorry, Mikey, if you're watching, I did that for you.
But, you know, what when I look at stuff from a business standpoint, right, I like to think I'm impartial and try to look at things and how they're going to, impact me, as we all do first, and our business and our staff. So when I put my transportation hat on, obviously President Trump and his first administration, I'm assuming the second, is favorable to our industry. Deregulation, putting things in place from an IC, independent contractor misclassification standpoint, beneficial.
Seems all positive for that.
All positive for that. He did, from your standpoint, he did at least pause the infrastructure bill, so the money you can get for EVs and
so you know about what happened to us on that?
No, tell me.
So we partnered with the University of Washington, Penn State University, Laz Parking, and Net Zero Logistics. And we were awarded a $2.5 million grant from the Department of Energy that was very, very competitive. And really the focus of what we would do as a team was to prove out that an open air parking garage that was probably going to be in Jersey City, might have been in Boston. There were a few areas where we were going to launch this with Laz Parking and with the oversight of University of Washington Logistics Department and Penn State University to garner the data, create public charging infrastructure where cars and people with, think of a city bike, but not the city bike, but your own personal bike, be able to pull in, charge your lithium-ion battery, whether it's a car, an e-bike, a scooter, and also create a micro hub in an open-air parking garage where freight could be driven in, dropped off at an open-air lot, sorted, and then go out by either electric vehicle or by e-bike, e-trike, or quad. So that unfortunately got paused, $2.5 million grant paused. And there was I think it's over several $1 billion of DOE grants that were squashed just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting.
It's interesting. You're not going to get it all. I think hopefully that gets resolved. I think that there's a lot of benefits we talked about with what you're working on and the future of it. Hopefully he can be helpful to help that ROI, right? Hopefully he takes a different approach in his administration. But one of the things that we talked about off camera I want to bring on is the concept of de minimis. Is that right? De minimis. What does that mean? And what has just happened recently in the space that's going to impact us?
So de minimis is I guess you call it a law. You probably need to ask Troy from
leadership. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, we'll look it up.
But I believe it's a law that allows overseas shippers to send to the United States a crate or a container that has $800 in value or less within that one container.
Okay.
where they don't pay tax. So there's no taxes coming into the United States as an import, and then it also quickly passes through customs. So there's been a lot of talk about changing the cap on de minimis. Some legislators wanted to increase it, some wanted to decrease it. And what happened recently, Trump removed de minimis and just an executive order and shut it down.
The de minimis is like a benefit for a company like a Temu.
Imagine if you could ship products, have it go speed right through customs and not pay custom taxes.
Yeah,
Or U.S. taxes into your product coming in these states.
Yeah, fun. I was talking to my Lyft driver the other day, and it's an older guy, and he started talking about e-commerce, online shipping, and we started talking shop a little bit. And he's saying how he just bought something off of Temu, $2.20, where it normally be like $15 somewhere else. And I didn't realize, but that's probably a large result of they don't have to pay taxes.
That's part of it. They're taking advantage of the lower costs in Asia.
Yeah, sure.
Think of how many companies actually create a product and they have it put together in China.
Yeah, of course.
So they're doing everything in China or Asia, somewhere in Asia, shipping it over. And it's not just Asia, but it could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah. It's creating an unfair competitive advantage.
Yeah,
President Trump stepped in.
And if I were Walmart, I were Amazon, I wouldn't want my competitors. Although, we talked about some of the things I learned from Amazon. Start with customer and work back.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I just reminded myself of. They always, never, ever focus on the competition. They don't look at what the competition is doing.
It's irrelevant.
And that was something I had to change in my kind of business acumen over the years, was like, you know what, try it. Like, forget about your competition and just focus on what you do and how you can be a better vendor to your client.
I love that.
But anyway.
I love that.
So de minimis.
So what happened? So Trump
What
put an
happened
executive order
was
in.
he cut the executive order, shut it down, and actually in his executive order, it removed the U.S. Postal Service for allowing them to deliver for these companies. So not only did it shut down de minimis, but the U.S. Postal Service wasn't going to perform deliveries for any of them. And within 2 days, there was such a backlog at customs that he had to revert it. Something will happen with de minimis. And all the agents that perform deliveries throughout the country, and there's millions and millions and millions a day. I know that just at JFK alone, one client ships in over 1 million deliveries a day into JFK Airport.
1 million a day, 1 million parcels a day.
Yep.
It's crazy volume.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about just the future of the industry. I mean, you obviously have done a number of things to kind of stay ahead of the curve. What do you see happening? Just the future, this whole final mile space. I mean, where's this thing going?
Great question.
Your history has shown that you're proven to adapt to it, but things are happening at a faster pace now. Some things we may or may not control as much. How does Mark Tosano look at the next?
If I had a crystal ball?
Yeah.
So I'd say one of the things I've learned over time is that there's always going to be change. I look back at when I was in this industry and was much younger and didn't have all this gray hair, probably a lot thinner. When the fax machine came along, like we all thought that was the demise. You were not in the industry. Your dad was.
Yeah.
We wound up utilizing that as an advantage. We bought one of the first fax machines in New York City that was over $3,000 back then. And we sold our services where you could come into our office, which is right in Grand Central, walk past the office, drop off a couple of pages, and we'd fax it to anywhere in the world. And not that it was big business, but we adapted.
Yeah.
When email came along, I thought that was going to be the demise, and a lot of people did. Once electronic documents became kind of the norm.
Yeah.
Like, we delivered a lot of legal documents throughout New York City, and it was going away. Like an electronic signature and DocuSign and everything else removed all of that. Check 21 changed the banking logistics side of it. But we've adapted all along the way. We've found ways to make benefits from that. We've purchased a bunch of different competitors over the years that may have struggled a bit. I think right now the opportunities that are out there are the things with the international shippers. There's a tremendous amount of volume coming in, but the rates are very, very low.
Yeah.
One thing I would recommend is that if anybody is looking to get into business with someone that might be a 3PL, that is kind of putting together the Temus and the Shens and all that, and they're then going out to someone like you, if you're a logistics company, do your homework. I got seriously burned in a deal recently with a company called Hailify that came to me with an opportunity where we would lease a space and they would provide a certain number of deliveries per day at an agreed upon rate. And without getting into any details, it's in the millions of dollars that they owe me.
Wow.
And I would recommend that anybody looking at new opportunities, do your homework, do your due diligence on who you may be getting into bed with. As they say, lift up the skirt and dig deep and see what's going on there. Be careful, because there are a lot of startups out there that will sell you a rosy picture, and 3 to 6 months down the road, you're sitting there holding the bag.
I want to actually go a little deeper in that, because I experienced this when I had QSets, when you're bidding on work, and they promise you got this much volume coming in, so you price it one way, and then you get it, and it's 10, 15, 20% less than what they promised, and now the math's not matching, right? It doesn't work out, and so you have to adjust, and sometimes you have to go ask more money, and the customer may say yay or nay, and it makes a bad situation. What could you have done different? What could you say? Look under the hood, look under the skirt a little bit. What does that mean? Like, what? Give me 2-3 things that you can actually do differently there.
So looking back on this specific event,
or maybe how you protect yourself too contractually for the audience who maybe.
Number one, go with your gut. Like I'm big on going with my gut, and I didn't this time. And I really was trying to stick to my guns for months and months, saying, hey, you know what? You think you need 80,000 square feet? I am not going to put myself out on a limb. I'll go into this deal with you, 30,000 square feet, maybe 35,000 square feet. And it's big bucks in New York City for warehouse space.
Absolutely.
So you're talking a lot of money. I should have stuck to my guns. Go with your gut. If your gut is telling you don't risk too much, don't do it.
Yeah.
Your gut's always right. Okay. At least with me, it's a really good indicator. I would say that dig into financials. Like if you're going into a deal where you may be out millions of dollars like I am, get their financials. Dig into them. Like you have the right to see it.
Yeah.
And my bad, I trusted, but I've learned.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of times we don't talk about the lowlights, the challenges, the failures. Everybody watch these podcasts and you think, God, this guy's figured out he was walking on easy street the whole time. But you're talking about someone who's as experienced as you are, has had the amount of success you've had, and still there could be a blind spot.
I'm a dumb bastard.
Y'all heard who said that. I didn't say that at all. Right.
My wife is going to say it.
But it's not so much the failure in itself or the challenge you have right now, the situation. It's what can you learn from it, get better at it, evolve, and go from last to first. But I appreciate you sharing it, because I think it's important.
What's that say right there?
Oh, last to first.
That's the first.
That's
Look
first.
at that plug.
That's pretty smooth.
My man.
That's pretty smooth. So, but I think you're right. When you think about the future and 3PLs, they're certainly they're a huge player in the space today, and I don't see that changing. So understanding who you're getting in business with, in bed with, people say sometimes is critical to your success. And I think you made a good point. Contractually, make sure you're working with the lawyer. you're exercising your rights in that contract, because oftentimes we don't read the details of these contracts. We're looking for a number and we sign off, but make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's on the front end. So if these things do pop up, you have some recourse available to you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And contractually, it's all good. The one other thing that I will say, if your gut's telling you don't do the deal unless you get a personal guarantee, which it was telling me, stick with your gut.
Yeah, yeah. Good advice. Let's wrap up on this.
Certainly.
Going back to Last of First, I'd like to ask our guests, kind of talking about, the personal side of their journeys. And, we all have challenges, whether it be in business, we just talked about one, but the personal side of it, you're someone who's had, massive success. You've done it, and I would say you've had massive success.
Thank you.
You've pivoted to different businesses, been innovative, managed through a lot of different changes in this industry, going from the days of your dad back in '76, I think you said. We talked about the future. We didn't talk a lot about it, but you are recognized as a national leader in this space. Certainly, you mentioned the Amazon DSP, and we talked about your tenure there, but in the true, I call it true final mile, like where we come from, you're someone that's a past president of the CLDA, well respected. What does it mean to you, one, two-part question, to be respected and looked at as that leader? What does that mean, to you, and how do you try to pay that forward? And then the second question is your personal challenges. How have you been able to navigate that into ultimately overcoming to get to where you are and where you want to go?
All right, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
First and foremost, thank you for the compliments. Secondly, I would never have any success unless I didn't surround myself with people that are way smarter than me. So 99% of the success that I may be attributable to is because of the people that I've been lucky enough to work with. Their hard work and dedication, it blows me away sometimes.
Yeah.
And maybe that's from, having good leadership skills where people want to work with you and want to do well. But I've been very lucky. I think your next question...
What's your personal what's the biggest Last of First moment for you personally? What have you been able to overcome to achieve the...
Overcome personally? Freaking chronic pain. Like, I wake up every single day. I've had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, over 10 operations on my body. Still have more to come. I've just been cursed with some serious health issues. But wake up every day and try to have a smile and try to kind of burn my way through it.
Yeah, to push through.
My goal is to get back out on a golf course. I was fairly competitive golfer. Went to college to play golf.
Okay.
And got as low as a 4 handicap. Been runner-up at our club twice.
Nice.
But I've been on the injured reserve list for 11 years now and just getting back into it.
Okay.
I've come to the realization I will never be out of pain and be able to play golf pain-free again. But that, I would say, is personal struggles. That's been the biggest struggle, is being in as much pain every single day. And then what was your final?
Well, that was good. I think that was the final part, but I would just ask you off of that.
I guess to learn from that personal experience is even when you even when you're down and beaten up and you wake up in the morning. I'm actually going to turn 64 in March, coming up in March.
You don't look like it.
I feel like I'm about 90 when I wake up in the morning because my body hurts so badly. But just to keep kind of moving forward, one step in front of the other, and just keep plugging away.
Yeah, yeah.
You're always going to have struggles. You're always going to have challenges to get through. That would be it, I think.
Got it. Well, I'll close out with this. One of the things that I think about you is your email signature. When you email you, at the bottom.
It's unfortunately true. And that's another thing I learned from Amazon. One of the top Amazonians, high executive, I saw that email signature at the bottom. And I'm like, that's perfect for me.
Yeah.
Because I work at bizarre hours.
It says, my hours may not be your work hours. which is true in this world we live in, this 24/7 world we live in the final mile. But it's also true in life that it doesn't matter, what's in front of you. You got to overcome and you got to do it at your own pace. We're all on our own journey. So I love that.
Yeah, it's funny how many people see that and ask, can I use that?
Yeah.
I'm like, sure. I borrowed it from somebody at Amazon. I asked them if I could borrow it.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like I could any time of the day or night. Like I sometimes don't sleep a lot when I'm thinking about it, a lot of the challenges.
Of course.
Wake up and I'm starting to go through the 1,000 unread emails, and I may be sending out a question to somebody on the team, but I want them to know, like I'm not. It's Saturday, Sunday, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's if I don't get it off this little feeble brain, I may forget about it.
Yeah. So you got to push it out. Yeah. Awesome.
Good catch. I like that.
Well, Mark, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun, Jason.
Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us and our audience.
I hope it was helpful. I don't know how much wisdom I've got, but I'm willing to share whatever I got.
I appreciate it. We got to have you back because I still want to hear the updates when we get the real ROI on net zero and all these things that's happening.
Bring up a picture of it, too, for you.
So appreciate you being on that first.
Let me move. We got to hug it out, bro.